Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap, a Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host, Terry, and today doing a preview of the 2019 Chicago Bears, looking at the defensive side of the ball. Before we get started, a couple reminders. Of course, as always, we're all Bears fans. Let's agree or disagree respectfully. And number two, starting my Patreon campaign. Check out the link in the description. Consider supporting the channel financially. All right, so with that being said, got to talk about the roster first. So if you didn't catch the offensive episode, basically just going to go through the depth chart. Then going to talk about some things we're excited about, some things that I still have questions about, and then talk about expectations. All right, and now we have the official 53-man roster, or the initial roster as of right now. So we know the cuts and everything, and so we can really look at this. Going through the depth chart, there's a couple surprises. There are a number of surprises. So up top, you got Jonathan Bullard being cut in favor of Abdullah Anderson. Nick Williams are the two defensive linemen that we're going to keep outside of Roy Robert Harris, who's kind of a rotational starter, I guess. But the two main backups will be Nick Williams and Abdullah Anderson. Nick Williams is a veteran. I know I'm familiar with his work. He's a good fit for the odd front. Abdullah, not as familiar. But anyway, with Bullard, look, I said for day one, we ruined that man's career. And what I mean by that is that he was never meant to be in the 3-4. And I still hear fans and some people talk about how there's no difference, you know, especially in 2019, 3-4-4-3, it's all the same. We all play nickel. That's true. We do all play nickel, but 3-4 and 3-4 or 3-4 and 4-3 does make a difference, even odd fronts, whatever you want to call them, because the type of player and the skill set is very different. And Bullard, people got to realize, like, again, this is a draft channel first and foremost. Watching him coming out of college in Florida, the man played defensive end in an even front. And so even as a bigger dude, he had so much athleticism that Florida had him on the edge. And he was a natural-born 3-tech. And I'm not saying he was Aaron Donald, definitely not hand technique-wise. But at the time, I remember having some type of feelings that I did watching Aaron Donald, where it's like, dude, this man's get off is incredible. And if he could put together his hands with that athleticism and ability to get off the ball, he could be disruptive. And so with Bullard, he ended up coming here. He ended up putting on more weight. And you could always still see he had a great get off. But he just completely had to change his game. It was ruined. And for the life of me, I never understood why we got him. Not that he isn't good. It's just for what we were doing. You look at guys like Akeem Hicks, like Eddie Goldman, even a Bilal Nichols, Nick Williams, all these guys. It's like our scheme was never meant to penetrate like that. And so I never understood why they thought they wanted to get Bullard, because we didn't even stunt and scheme and do too much of that. So it's like you weren't ever going to utilize his athleticism. So anyway, I've always had a soft spot for Bullard, and it's shocking we let him go, because I think he has progressed and he has turned into more of a serviceable player for what we do. But to see him being cut, that was a little bit of a shock. But I hope he finds somewhere else to land, because I think he'll be good. So it turns out to be what we thought it was. Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, Bilal Nichols. Again, in our base front. Of course, when we go to our nickel, it'll be Akeem Hicks, Eddie Goldman, most likely, with some rotation between Roy Roberts and Nichols. So there we go. Then our linebacker crew, all the same, but the linebackers, this is probably the point that most people want to talk about. We have 6 inside linebackers. Now, I'm not going to pretend I know what our third string linebacker situation was last year. What I do know is Danny Trevathan Roquan was the starter. I know Nick Kwiatkowski was originally starter. He got beat out. And then we had Iggy, who was drafted, more of a special team guy. So we had at least 4. Now we're talking about Josh Woods, Kevin Pierre-Louis. I thought for sure that these guys were going to get cut. And so now when you think about some of the other people that got cut, and you look at the fact that we have 6 inside linebackers, it does make you wonder. So, of course, the thing you realize is that special teams is what you're going to see. Nick does some special teams. Iggy does most of the special teams. And we'll see where Woods and Pierre-Louis go. Now, it's some people's preference on who they have as special team players. Some people like to have linebackers as their core special team guys because they can hit, of course, but they can also run, be a little more physical. Some people like safeties, DBs more. Just depends on what your preference is. So that's my initial thought with it. Now you look at the outside linebackers and you're talking about Kylie Fitz gets cut, which I understand. Look, my thing is Aaron Lynch is not good. And so Aaron Lynch versus Kylie Fitz, Aaron Lynch is more athletic. And that's not saying a whole bunch, but he's more athletic. But if you were to ask me who I would rather have, I would probably say Kylie Fitz. And look, Fitz isn't athletic enough to where you're going to use him on a lot of special teams, so he doesn't have that value as well. So I kind of understand, but him and Isaiah Irvin, I really like those two much more than I like Aaron Lynch as a pass rusher. So it's not shocking, but it's a little sad to see them cut him, especially in favor of 2 inside linebackers that hopefully will never have to see, the field of play. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right there. And then we go to our secondary. It's kind of what we thought, our 2 starters, Fuller, Prince, Buster Screen, whatever how you say his name is going to be the nickel. Then Tolliver is the backup corner and Duke is the backup nickel. So it's a little weird, I guess, when I look at it because that's 5 defensive backs. And we're going to be playing 3 DBs most of the time. And I mean, again, you got 1 corner to back up both spots and 1 slot to back up the nickel spot. And I'm sure they believe that Duke can play outside if need be. But it was interesting between Michael Joseph, Jonathan Franklin III. I thought we had some interesting, young bodies to be out there to, try to make the roster or at least be backups and be developed. But then you see that we end up just going kind of with what we already had, essentially, plus Duke Shelley. So, I mean, I have no problem with Kevin Tolliver. I don't know. I wonder, and, maybe corner, they feel like is in a position that, is at risk to be as hurt as other people. But the depth does make me wonder a little bit, especially because I think it's a chance that Prince could not heavily, but slightly regress with his lack of athleticism this year. And so if Tolliver does come in and ends up starting, then you got kind of an older corner as your backup. And I don't know, it's a weird situation. But then I think that's one of the reasons Sherrick McManus is still on the team, besides the special teams play, of course. We end up keeping 5 safeties. Sherrick will be the 3rd stringer, but he's had experience at corner. So I think that's one of the reasons he ended up on the roster as well. Safety, I mean, I'm not we'll see how Clinton Dix and Jackson pair together as far as what our run game or our run defense will look like. And I'm not too worried. I do think we can do some things in coverage with them. But then Deion Bush and Houston Carson behind them, those are definitely special teamers. Like, I don't see them as like high class backups. I see them as like pretty good special teamers. And I know they had, decent preseasons, but we've seen them for years. Again, serviceable, but I don't think they'll be great or anything. I just think the drop off in our safety depth is pretty huge. But, what can you do? You got top flight starters, can't have top flight backups all the time. So anyway, that is our depth chart. And I think looking at it on its surface, it's just like, okay, we got a lot of inside linebackers, and some of the names we knew end up got sacrificed to keep those spots. And so we're wondering how that's going to play out. All right, so what am I excited about as far as the 2019 Chicago Bears? I mean, look, it's darn near the exact same lineup. So I don't think there's anything new besides Chuck Pagano, and we'll see. I think when you got guys in a group that comes together this gelled and that has accomplished what they accomplished, I really don't think you come in and stir the pot too much. I do think philosophically there'll be some different things, but you're going to watch the tape. You're going to see what they're good at. You're going to take their input, and you're going to continue to let them do what they're good at, even if it looks a little different. Now, having Clinton Dix is going to up our coverage range. As I mentioned before, that's one of the things I think is an upside as far as pass coverage. And it's not to say this whole thing about ball hawk. The Adrian Amos argument is so stupid. It is absolutely dumb. He's not a ball hawk. He wasn't asked to be a ball hawk. Like, if you watch football and you watch Clinton Dix did what Eddie Jackson did. Clinton Dix was a single high safety. He was playing, from the middle of the field to the sideline, like very different than the things that Amos was asked to do. And so while I think there is a drop off in other areas, I think this does change the coverage we can do, and we can really switch it up. Eddie Jackson did a little bit of kind of robber coverage last year, a little bit of, the cover 4 spy stuff. And I think we can do even more with it, because really sometimes, like, if you see Adrian or, Amos or certain safeties back, and it's like, okay, well, obviously he's not going to be covering the deep end because he doesn't have that range. With Clinton Dix, you don't know. We could, essentially flip-flop who takes the deep coverage or who has what. So we can do a lot more disguising. And just watching some of the stuff Chuck Pagano did with the Colts back in the day, they did a lot of last-second motioning with the safeties and a lot of disguising as well. So I think that is an advantage, and I'm excited to see what we can do. The thing is, our corners really are just what they are, especially Prince. And so I don't know how versatile we're going to get with coverage, but I do think we could change the looks up a little bit. But other than that, I'm just excited to see us bring the same quality we brought last year. Khalil Mack up in the pass rush. I don't really see our pass rush going anywhere higher because it's the same people. Of course, we'll blitz Roquan and whatnot, but I guess the only question is if Leonard Floyd will step up. And I guess we move to the questions then. I mean, there's a lot of questions, to be honest. Not a lot, like pressing questions. There's a little small questions. Number one, will Leonard Floyd finally step up and take advantage of the lack of attention he has with Khalil Mack on the opposite side? The other question is, will Prince regress noticeably, or will he be able to be steady and do what he's been able to do last year? And then just kind of how Clinton Dix and Jackson are going to mesh in the run game. And so, as I said, we can up our coverage ability, our range, and, what we can do with our safeties. But now you're talking about two guys that aren't run stoppers. And while we have a great front, one of the best fronts in the league, I'm curious to see how that will affect things. So there we go there. So, I mean, honestly, with the defense, not a whole lot to talk about because we do have the same team coming in. Now, go into expectations. So with offense, there's certain statistics and things I want to look at, but honestly, with defense is not. I mean, every major category for the most part, things we did, we know what we bring and we know what we were able to do. I'm just looking for us to repeat it again. And I'm not like some people are just looking for the upgrades. Like, okay, what we're going to do to get more sacks. And I went through all our sacks. I know how highly we ranked in sacks. Look, I did the video. Go check it out. A lot of it is coverage. And so anyway, a lot of people are like, okay, well, how are we going to up this? How are we going to up that? I look at what we did with the roster, and I don't know that we're upping anything. And I don't know that we need to if you're talking about to be Super Bowl contenders. I think we had a Super Bowl caliber defense last year, and I think what we have coming back this year, we can be a Super Bowl caliber defense. I mean, anything you want to talk about statistically as far as takeaways, as far as, splash plays, as far as yardage, like we were great at it. And so to me, I just want to see us run it back and do it again. And really, the onus is on the offense to kind of step up there. And so I'm looking at this roster, and it's the same thing as last year, minus the question of run support from the safeties. We'll see what happens there. But you look, if Kyle Fuller and Prince are not asked to be on the island and, we aren't looking for Khalil Mack to be the only one to provide pressure, then I think we'll be perfectly fine as long as we keep those two things under control. So anyway, it was kind of shorter, but that's what happens when you bring who's the only, I guess technically Bilal Nichols wasn't a starter, but he's one of our guys. And then you got Clint Dix as a new starter. So really you got 10 guys coming back that were starters last year. And then if you want to count the nickel, Buster Screen as well, who is also a question I would have to throw out there too. But again, I think the way we play defense, the nickel isn't like on the island and exposed. I think if he plays within his means, he'll be perfectly fine. So, it's just not a lot of questions for this returning defense. But I am excited, and I just expect us to continue to, be excellent on that side of the ball. I expect us to be aggressive and attack the ball. So there we are. So anyway, what do you think? Go to the comment section. Let me know what you think about the Bears defense this year. Any questions you have, any expectations you have, anything you're worried about. What do you think about the depth chart? All that, go in the comment section, spread it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and remember, stay up and bear down.